This episode of Rhizome is brought to you in part by the Synthesis Security Group and Fuzzy Wuzzy Signal Processing, a venture of Ian Swanke. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Let's jump right in today with something that sounds, well, like a total joke, but actually leads us straight into one of the most profound archaeological discoveries in human history. So imagine you're browsing the internet looking up ancient history, and you stumble across this totally bizarre search query for an ancient chicken city located in Pakistan. I mean, it sounds like a weird roadside attraction, right? But this quirky little digital footprint is actually our doorway into a completely lost world. So, what on earth is the ancient chicken city? Well, a big part of this is actually just our modern technology failing us in a pretty hilarious way. You see, Chicken City is a super common autocorrect mix-up when people try to type the actual name of this ancient site into their phones. But surprisingly, there really is some historical weight to this paltry connection. Archaeologists and historians have theorized that the original ancient name for this metropolis might have translated to City of the Cockerel, or Rooster, and they're basing that on actual rooster motifs carved into ancient Indus Valley seals that were dug up right at the site. But to the world today, it goes by a totally different, much more intimidating name. Because the city we're actually talking about here is Mohenjo-Daro. Now, in the local Sindhi language, that translates to the rather grim title of Mound of the Dead Men. It's located in the Sindh province of Pakistan, right along the Indus River. And today, it's a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. But hey, don't let that morbid name fool you. This absolutely was not just some primitive settlement or a burial ground. Mohenjo-Daro was a massive, pre-planned urban center of the ancient Indus Valley Civilization. We're talking about a thriving, bustling metropolis that challenges literally everything we thought we knew about early human innovation. Section 1. A timeline of giants, placing Mohenjo-Daro in history. Now, to really wrap our heads around how staggering this place was, we've got to place it correctly on the timeline of human history. When we think of the ancient world, we usually picture a few very specific heavyweights, right? Well, Mohenjo-Daro was built around 2500 BCE. To put that into perspective for you, right around 2580 to 2560 BCE, the Great Pyramids of Giza were being built over in Egypt. In England, around that exact same 2500 BCE mark, the massive stones of Stonehenge were being dragged into place. And in the Fertile Crescent, the Akkadian Empire was just starting its rise. Mohenjo-Daro belongs to this exact same era of human giants, and yet, even though it flourished in the same ancient breath as the pyramids, its whole approach to civilization couldn't have been more different. It was eventually abandoned around 1900 BCE, but for those roughly 600 years, it was an absolute powerhouse. And the sheer scale here is just absolutely wild. For 6 centuries, Mohenjo-Daro served as one of the major administrative and trade hubs of the entire Indus Valley Civilization. We are talking about an estimated population of 20,000 to 40,000 residents. Just think about the sheer logistics of that for a second. 40,000 people living in a highly concentrated urban space, 4,500 years ago. Without modern technology, how on earth do you prevent a city of that size from just collapsing into chaos and disease? Section 2. Engineering the Ancient Future. Roman-level infrastructure 2,000 years early. The answer to managing a city that large all comes down to their engineering. And this is the part of the explainer that honestly blows my mind every single time I read about it. We are looking at Roman-level infrastructure, but delivered 2 entire millennia before the Roman Empire even existed. So unlike a lot of ancient cities that just sort of grew organically, which is really just a polite way of saying they were chaotic, sprawling messes, Mohenjo-Daro was pre-planned on a strict master grid. Almost every home had a private bathroom. Let that sink in for a second. 2500 BC, and they had private baths connected to a covered brick sewer system running right down the center of their paved streets. These drainage channels even had removable inspection traps so municipal workers could get in and clear blockages. They used passive climate control in their multi-story homes, meaning thick mud brick walls, interior courtyards for airflow, and high windows that block direct sunlight while letting the hot air escape. They even used natural asphalt, called bitumen, to waterproof structures like the famous Great Bath. And it's not just the plumbing. It's their absolute obsession with order and standardization. The city wasn't just built, it was manufactured. Archaeologists figured out that the kiln-baked bricks used across the entire region, so not just in Mohenjo-Daro, but throughout the whole civilization, were produced using an incredibly strict uniform dimensional ratio, 1 to 2 to 4, height to width to length. This kind of standardized mass manufacturing is something we usually associate with the Industrial Revolution, yet here they are, executing it perfectly in the Bronze Age. Plus, you need water for all that plumbing, right? A lot of it. The city contained over 700 freshwater wells, and they didn't just dig crude holes in the dirt either. These wells were lined with specially engineered wedge-shaped bricks that were designed specifically to withstand immense underground soil pressure. The level of foresight, the mathematical precision, and just the municipal planning required to pull this off across a city of 40,000 people is just staggering. Section 3. Rewriting Early Human History, the third pillar of civilization. So when this site was finally excavated back in the 1920s, it sent absolute shockwaves through the historical community. It completely shattered the accepted timeline of human history and quite literally forced us to rewrite the textbooks. See, before the 1920s, historians generally agreed that human urban civilization began almost exclusively in two main cradles, Egypt and Mesopotamia. But unearthing Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley Civilization proved that there was this massive third pillar of the Old World existing at the exact same time. And this was no minor offshoot. This third pillar covered a geographic footprint larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. It also fundamentally proved that highly sophisticated, long-distance maritime and overland trade existed way, way earlier than anyone previously thought. And the evidence for this trade is fascinating. Excavators found standardized stone weights at the site. These weren't just random rocks. They followed a highly precise binary and decimal system, which means they had a strictly regulated economy. And we know for a fact they were trading globally because those ancient Indus Valley seals, remember the ones with the Rooster motifs we talked about earlier? Well, those have been excavated as far away as ancient Sumer in modern-day Iraq. That means over 4,000 years ago, there was a fully operational, regulated, international trade network connecting these ancient superpowers. Section 4. A city without kings. Municipal logistics over dynastic rule. All right, so this brings us to what I honestly think is the biggest paradigm shift of this whole explainer, how this society actually functioned, and more importantly, who was in charge. When you look at contemporaries like Egypt, you see massive royal tombs like the pyramids, literally entire mountains of stone built to celebrate a single divine pharaoh. Over in Mesopotamia, you see grand palaces and towering temples built to praise priestkins. The wealth and the labor of those societies were funneled all the way to the top to serve an autocrat. Now, contrast that with Mohenjo-Daro. Their massive civic investments weren't in ego, they were in public goods. They built public baths, covered street sewers, massive civic granaries for food security, and they maintained strict, uniform civic standards. This is the true mystery, right? And the true marvel of the place. Despite extensive excavations, the city entirely lacks grand monuments dedicated to individual rulers. There are no opulent royal tombs. There are no massive military fortifications. There's no central palace dominating the skyline. Instead, what we see is a highly organized, centralized governance model relentlessly focused on municipal logistics, public health, and urban efficiency, rather than dynastic rule or individual glorification. It absolutely proves that a highly advanced, peaceful, and complex society can exist by prioritizing the collective well-being of its citizens over the ego of a single ruler. Which leaves us with a pretty massive final thought. The stones and sewers of Mohenjo-Daro have survived for 4,500 years to tell us exactly what that society valued: public health, equality in infrastructure, and civic order. It really makes you wonder, when future archaeologists are digging up our cities in 4,000 years, what are our structures going to say about us? Will they find a society completely dedicated to the public good, or something else entirely? Think about that the next time you walk down a city street.
Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the ground beneath your feet.
Now available exclusively on Amazon Kindle eBooks, Rhizome Summer 2026, a collection of essays, Rhizome Fall 2026 Book 2.